What does that mean?
I don't get paid for
She
eating.
works for free. Maybe she works for free.
I feel like I work
That's
for
funny.
free.
She's
No.
our favorite.
Are you having have you having client contact?
Oh yeah, I have my
Okay. So, out of pure ignorance, educate me. So, is there locked facilities that keep the girls separate from the boys?
They have their own room, but the rooms don't have locks on them.
How do we keep stuff from happening?
There's a ratio.
Supervision.
Yeah.
And if somebody stays up all night trying to keep stuff
Yeah.
and all that?
So there's, I think 2 people are on nights, overnight. And then throughout the day, like yesterday, there were 6 of us.
Okay. So daytime never an issue.
And right now, we have a bunch of teen girls, and then we have, I think, a 12-year-old boy,
Yeah.
and then a 7-year-old boy. But most of the shelter right now is girls, which a couple weeks ago was an issue because one girl confessed to being high at dinner, and then they all decided they wanted to be high.
We started out.
But nothing happened.
No.
Yeah, I mean, they have their own rooms, and I mean, occasionally they'll bunk a couple of them together. But right now we have a sibling group of 3, so they're all in a room together.
Do you have a lot of incidents of safety issues over there?
I've only been with this program since May. As far as I know, I haven't heard of any safety issues. I think they keep, there was a time where there was a lot of burnout, I think, with the staff because we had lost some staff who were like pretty stacked together. And so I think it was hard on people who were working thirds and they were coming back from second shift, and so there wasn't a whole lot of time in between their shifts. But it's fully staffed now.
Right. Would you say it's a fair statement that there is more drama than
Yes.
violence?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
way more drama.
Okay. So de-escalating
From what I've
drama.
heard, it's more drama. They do have, they're, I can tell you, he punched his hand through glass one time, he got so angry. Breaking things. They have had children run over, they have had kids run, because their door is not locked, and they can run, and they can run towards the street. They've had, kids come home high, on drugs. There have been, incidences that have happened throughout the years, but I wouldn't say they're daily. It's more drama than crisis. But everyone in their program is currently in a crisis, or they wouldn't be there. So it's,
Of course, right.
Yeah.
Just in light of your
Yeah.
comments, I'm trying to think about ways to address that.
I'm only just now starting to get to see all of the kids in the shelter at one time. Since I started this internship, I usually do life skills, which is more of a one-on-one or a smaller group.
Right.
So I get to know that in that setting. I get to know a child really well, but I don't get to see the daily ins and outs of what happens with the interactions of all of the kids together until this week.
I guess we're waiting on 2, or should I just move forward?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So this section is a little bit more geared towards self-care, issues, how to prevent burnout, and the skills that you're using for yourself that will either kind of flow over the kids, and or once you master them, you can start cooling them in and letting them in on some of those things. I was telling Jessica that certainly it would be completely inappropriate for people walking into the lobby and for their first contact to be, hey, let's think about relaxing your butt. That's not okay, right? But over long-term contact, in the shelter with some of those older kids who really do have trouble regulating their emotions, if you can say in an appropriate manner, okay, sit down, feel your fanny, feel the part that's touching the chair, put your hand, and what Dr. Gentry says, put your hands under your fanny and feel your the pelvic bone. And then imagine a box from here, your hip bones, down to under here. Now relax that part of your body. That's it. It doesn't get any weirder than that, but that would be really weird for a kid who's just walked in on the street and said, no, we're not. I'm out of here. But over longer term, when they're struggling with how to regulate their emotions, because we were talking about how can they know nothing about regulation, right? Every day of their life is just crazy cat herding craziness. So it's far more important for you to learn how to do it and regulate yourself and your body and your emotions. And then that energy magically will bleed off onto them in a good way. It's not magic cookie dust, but it's definitely helpful. The most important skill is listening. If you're listening really, really well, and I don't know about you, but I struggle with this. Sometimes it is and they're looping and repeating, and our tendency is already, our mind is wandering and either thinking about what we need to pick up at the grocery store when we leave work, because we still have lives to lead, or we've already in our minds checked out and we're in resource mode, right? I know what you mean. Whereas if we're really deeply listening, just for a period of time, they might drop a bomb on you that otherwise you wouldn't have caught, right? And that would draw from a totally different place of resource. They may know far more about your problem than we give them credit for. I know I've run into that with victims before, who ended up in a situation is they knew what they were doing, but they couldn't discern why they were doing it, right? So that gets us to 5 questions. Who, what, where, when, why. We're all familiar with those. But following deep listening is to elicit that information from them. Instead of telling them, get them to tell you. This is, I say for care providers, the most important question of that list is why. Know your why. Why are you doing this? Because over the last 7 years, my why has changed. It started out that my why was because I moved from Florida to Texas and I had no support system here and a 7th grader. And the Round Rock Police Department is all about family. And it did not matter what happened. He's got a football game. He's getting an award. He's sick. Bye. Without question. Well, there's a call that's coming up that's going to drop. We'll find somebody to go. Just go. Go. Take care of your kid. And I know that there are state agencies and corporate businesses that don't operate. They don't care about your family. They don't care about any of that stuff. And so I put up with being on call and crappy pay and late night hours and all kinds of things in order to be absolutely available when my kid was in crisis. Even if the crisis was a happy. Because if you tell him you're not going to be at a football game, that is a crisis. And so, my father was an Episcopal priest for 42 years, and he retired, and he got cancer and died. My oldest brother, Kenny, was a medevac chopper pilot in Vietnam. And he was so disturbed by everything he saw and did there that he came back and went to grad school and became a clinical psychologist. He did private counseling for years and years and years, and then he ended up in West Virginia working with juvenile sex offenders. And then moved into administration and ended up working at state level writing policy about all those things. And I recently had the luxury of this road trip that my mom and I took, and we actually went to his house in North Carolina, and I'm telling him about, you know, I've got my can thing that I do. And at the end of it, he went, you know, that's a bunch of crap, right? He said, do you know why you're doing that? I said, I have Savior Complex, and I caught it from you and Daddy. He's like, you need to get over that. You need to get over it. You can't save them. Clearly, you're not even saving yourself. He said, now, is there some other why? There's some other why that's keeping you there. Do you know what it is? And I went, yeah, kind of like the drama. He's like, right? Because you don't do drama in your own family, do you? And I'm like, nope, we don't do drama. I have the most boring, wonderful family in the world. And he said, but you like to walk into those situations and bring it down, right? Don't you gain some satisfaction from doing that? Yes, I did. And I even recently got my trauma certification. I mean, that the ability to bring someone from up here to down here through my skill set provides me with some deep satisfaction that I'm not sure I can explain any other way than that. It provides me with deep satisfaction. I like to help people, but currently what I'm working on is not being a martyr. That's hard for me. I'm a red shirt and toting martyr to my core. That's how I was raised. That's what you do. And it's not helping. So I'm currently readjusting my why. The other thing is our agency. Hey, Joseph.
Married?
That's a superstar right there.
No.
And there's his twin. His twin superstar. You're here early, and I'm not stopping.
Oh, we-
Until I'm done.
no, we- We're just here to enjoy your presence.
Okay. I soak up my humanity. So when Rosie and I were really suffering some extreme burnout and patrol because they were really short-handed at the time, it was before the new chief took over, and we weren't getting the positions from the city, on and on and on. So you have a population that has grown by tens of thousands, and keep losing people through attrition and not being replaced, and now you have way fewer people doing this, not only the work they were doing before, but all the extra work, and a hiring policy that demands that the only people that walk in that door and stay there are the best of the best. Those guys. And so failure is not an option for them or for us. That's what they spoon feed you that from day one. The Round Rock Police Department, you were the best of the best of the best. So you go in every day and you're giving gut side out till one day you're like, oh dear, all my guts are outside. What do I do now? And so you have a couple of options. We have several options. One is you can lower the quality of your work. You can lower the output. You just start saying, well, if it's here or below, I'm not worried with that. You know, and we did some of that. We did some of that as an agency. We just said, you know, we're not responding to that anymore. And along with the financial crunch of 2007, 2008, 2009, volunteerism, do y'all use volunteers at all?
Yeah.
It tanked for a while. Tanked. People were scrabbling around worrying about their own business. It's come back, but for a brief time there, that became an issue as well. We had lots of people, volunteers working side jobs, just like the rest of the IHOP sector. So there's always a hook. There's always a hook. And they found my hook, and that was, we'll take you off call, and we'll let you work 4 10s. Now I have a 4-day weekend. That's the hook. You gonna get that at stake? Nope. So I work on my why, And it doesn't matter what your why is. Your why can be, I'm, red shirt martyr, I'm going to save the world, I'm this, I know, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Know what it is. Know why you do what you do. And you give your all up to a point. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's about, I can't believe you guys are here now. This is really motivating for me. Everyone will get to the end of this. Even though you were there. NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Anybody aware of that? What NLP is? It was developed by John Grinder and Richard Bandler from, I think they were at USC or Berkeley or one of those places out in California. They were off the charts weird. But it's really, really effective. And so the only thing I'm going to teach you today about NLP is a state break. And I use this when I have a detective who needs an answer from someone who is sobbing and, losing their business, and it sounds a little bit inappropriate. And I just use these as an example, squirrel or pink aardvarks. What you're going to say is something random. And you might even use a hand motion, finger snap, something. You're going to make it somewhat appropriate, but what it does is it redirects that person's mind from the state that they're currently in, which is intense grief, or it can be anger, or they're ramped up, whatever the emotion is. Because he goes, squirrel, and it literally will stop them from what they're doing. It's what I do. It's what I utilize. I used to have to, when I felt like I was getting drawn into the story so hard, I was going to cry. Right? You ever heard a story so sad, you're like, you can feel your eyes filling up with tears, and you're like, oh, no, this cannot happen. You've got two options. You can step out or do a state break. Say to yourself, squirrel, pinch yourself. Squirrel, whatever your code word is, and that's a state break. And literally, you'll stop crying. You'll stop crying, you'll stop, wherever that was going, it cuts it off right there. And you can use it with clients. It's hard when they've hit a point where they're at the point of no return, but they can't hear you. But if you can get to them before you let it get that far, just do a state break, and they might even get in the room. What? Doesn't matter. You redirected them, right? Then lead them where you want to go. But that's NLP. I highly suggest you look into it. Voice modulation, really, really, really important. So I'm from Florida, and I used to sell Aflac insurance years and years ago, and when I talked to construction workers, this is how I talked to them. And I would wear jeans and a polo shirt, and I would sit down on the cinder block and talk to them just like that. When I went into an attorney's office, I wore black slacks and a black jacket or skirt, and very professional. All my gestures, all my vernacular, whatever, was suited to that audience, as was my voice modulation. So that's another thing. Again, don't let them ramp you up. Use your 911 skills to bring them down. Hypnosis. Anybody familiar with hypnosis? Again, that has a voice thing without, again, not talking baby talk, not going into full-on sing-song. I was a radio dispatcher for years and years and years, and let me tell you, no cop hates anything worse than 12 hours of some girl singing to them on the radio. Am I right, guys? You hate somebody sing-songing to you?
11 hours is good.
11 hours.
Yeah.
That 12 hours is good too. So, hypnotic language coupled with anchoring. I didn't put anchoring on there. I don't normally touch people on call. Number one, I'm a germaphobe, and I don't want to be touched. I don't want to touch them. Freaky little inside information there. But it happens sometimes. I have had full-on body press hugs by people, and I'm like, oh, now I'm going to have to set myself on fire. Because whatever that is, it's now on me. And I knew my mom was a germaphobe, and I knew I had these tendencies, but I really didn't know it was as bad as it was until I got into this job. But then I thought, you know what, this is a good time for growth. This is a good, because you know what, I made it to whatever I was at the time, 40-something years old. And my mom's way older than me, at least 20 years older than me. And not only did she not die, but I'm not going to die either if I was able to touch me. And here I am. I have not died. And I have been hugged once that I remember vividly, like it happened 5 seconds ago, by clearly a person who was on crack, who had on a little tiny tank top with no bra, and Daisy Dukes with everything hanging out of them, and sores, and breath that smelled like what we call a stinker, you know, a body that's been dead for a long time. It's in full decomp. That's what her breath smelled like. And she's crying, and sweaty, it was hot in the apartment, they had the air on, and it just was as hideous as you can imagine. This has nothing to do with my presentation. And somehow, remember I talked about that door? Do not let them get between you and the door, because that's what I did. They had put us in the bedroom, which I had issues about to begin with. It was bad enough being in the living room, sitting on the edge of a hard chair. And I was in the bedroom, where I did not know what all happened, but I could imagine. And I somehow managed to get between the bed and the door, and she was between me and the door. And the sergeant, I had told him, do not leave here without me. Do not leave me here. So he goes, Mary, we're done. You ready to go? And I went to take a step. She didn't move. Uh-oh, I already committed. I already pulled the second foot up, and now I'm in the room with her! And she's just sobbing, and she's doing this thing, and I'm like, oh gosh, oh gosh. And she crunches up her shoulders, and the next thing I knew, she did it. Just like a 2-year-old. And I just went, it's okay, not today, but someday soon it'll be okay. Please get off of me. So, that had nothing to do with anything. Anchor. Yeah, it's an anchor. Thank you. Thank you. It was an anchor. Thank you for bringing me back to where that was. No touching, but sometimes you can touch them on the hand. You know, touch them on the hand if the nature of the relationship has gone that far, where you have that kind of trust level, and it's, you know, good touch, bad touch. Good touch, you know, is to just, when you say something like, you're not going to be okay today, but it's Sunday in the next couple of days, next few days, things will start to get better. And you anchor that, and sure enough, it becomes a self-fulfilling thing. Another strategy about crying, we talked about the phone earlier. Just say, oh, phone's ringing, hold on a second. And it can seem rude as heck, but it's way better than you losing it in front of them. That bottom with the asterisk, that's the most important thing. That's about knowing your why. This is the other one. If you do not save yourself, you can't save anyone else, right? It's with the tag on the airplane, put your own oxygen mask on before you try to save anybody else. And you go to these things where they're well-meaning people say, well, do yoga and do this and do that. And you know, that is wonderful. All of those things are wonderful. And if you can afford massages and you have extras, give them to me. Because I cannot afford to get a massage. And I'm not doing hot yoga, and I can't afford to do regular yoga. Work on this work-life balance. I can't really brag on this two over there. They're struggling with that. But we do have some folks that I watch and who have become very, very adept at work-life balance. Don't give up those football games. Don't give up the choral concerts at the school for your kids. If your family is in town, find a way. Find a way to, you know, arrange it if you can. Lay that pager down. Be with them. Forget about it. Don't say, call me no matter what. Don't say that. Do not martyr yourself for your job, because you must go to well. You must go to well. Debriefs. One of the things we learned, I'll try to make this real quick, way back in the day, several years ago, I mentioned this last night, we had an officer-involved shooting. Were there 3 or 4 of them? The first one, way back. Well, never mind. All of those folks are gone now. We did not do a good job. It was in 2007. 4.
or 4, 3 officers and a trainee.
Okay, are all three of those officers gone or just two?
2 and the trainee,
Well, Andy's still here.
and we still have Andy.
Okay, I'd forgotten that Andy was part of that.
Yeah.
We didn't do a good job on that one. We didn't do a good job of follow-up. But what we did do was, over the years, recognize that we had failed them. And now the city has a psychologist who specializes in military and law enforcement PTSD. And anybody, even civilians, I can go, my volunteers can go. And she bills her hours directly to the city. You can go anonymously. And over time, it's taken a lot of time, but we have these debriefs, and you know, Round Rock's like, I don't know, 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th safest city in the nation of its size, so we don't have a lot of murder and mayhem, but what we do have is death, suicide, baby death, and that takes its toll on officers, takes its toll on victim services, takes its toll on the detectives. It's hard when you have all these young guys that got little babies and little folks or teenagers to walk in and see someone who is the same age as their kid, and they're in their, you know, they were a block away, they landed on the scene first, and EMS is not there yet, and they're working in code on a 2-month-old. And then you expect them to just walk away from that and be okay? No, sir, it doesn't work like that. So we work real hard at making sure that everybody gets debriefed really quickly. You guys need to do the same thing. When you have that drama, you have that frustration, you're expected to stay calm and keep your wits about you and be calm and loving and sweet, and you're just we're all bleeding heart liberals, right? That crap will eat you alive. So you guard your home life vehemently. Go home, meet with her family, and do debriefs. Pick a mentor. It can even be, a mentor could be someone younger than you. Lots of times I've talked to an officer who was 20 years younger than me but had insights that blew me away. So don't judge on age or even experience. And sometimes what happened to them in the early years of their life, or maybe they just have a lot of insight. Don't take that crap home. How many times have you laid in bed at night and thought about flying? I have. Not anymore. So develop a ritual. You're putting on ritual and you're taking off ritual. Whatever it is. You're getting your stuff together, you're putting it in the drawer. Last thing I did is we have to keep all of our files and papers and whatnot. Everything's confidential. So lock it up. And for me, it's a mental thing. It's an anchor. It's an NLP anchor. Key goes in, turn the lock. Done. I'm done. Now I might get paged at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I'm not going to anticipate that that's going to happen. I'm done with this day. And I did all I could, and maybe it was not good enough. I've had low resource days where it just clearly wasn't I didn't do a good job. And just like I told Hank this morning, I forgave him. So, you know what? We messed up. Brush it off, lock the door, I'm out of here. And then on the way home, I turned the radio up really, really loud. I have a good sound system, and I thumped it out of me. I just thumped that day out of me. Done. And then I walk. Only walking, there will be no running. I have a boxer, Bucky the boxer, and we walk every single day. That walk has nothing to do with exercise. We've talked about exercise and how I feel about it. Exercise is stupid. However, when you walk and it's rain or shine, sleet or snow, he gives no breaks. No breaks. And the whole time we're walking in the rain, he keeps looking back at me like, do something. And I'm like, we could have stayed inside. And he's like, no, that's not an option. So never mind. And I walk it off, walk the stressors of the day, because I may have left it mentally there, but it's still stored in my body. Right? There's stress there. Just walk it off. Walk. It gets you out in nature, breathe a little fresh air. If it's cold and nasty outside, it feels good to come back into the warm house. There's upside there. Another really important, make friends outside of work. Don't go drinking and hanging around with your work buddies. Because someday you may decide to change jobs. If you're a 25, 30-year veteran